This is the Woven Picot Stitch. I'm going to be working it right here. I'm just using a longer doll maker's needle, but you can use just a regular pin or another needle depending on how large you want your picot to be. When I insert it into the fabric, this is the length that my stitch is going to be. So if I wanted a really long one, I could put it that way and that would be the length of my stitch. But for the sake of the video, we're going to just make a regular sized woven picot. And this is also one that I can't use my embroidery stand because I'm flipping the hoop back and forth and it just gets hard to use the stand. So I am making a triangle shape. So I just brought my thread up here. I took it behind the needle, so the needle's anchoring it there, and I took it down there. And now I'm going to bring it back up right next to the needle. And I'm going to take it behind this needle again. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up my rows for weaving. So I need 3 stitches here to weave this stitch. Everything else will be worked above the fabric at this point. And so for my first stitch, it also helps to use a tapestry needle. So I'm going to switch to my tapestry needle for this point. Whenever you're doing a woven stitch, it makes it easier on yourself to use a tapestry needle that's not going to catch your threads because it doesn't have a sharp end. Okay, so I'm just going to start. I'm going under, over, under. And then I'm pulling my thread through. And I just make sure that I push it to the top of that needle. I want it nice and pressed up against that. And now I'm going to flip it upside down. And I'm going to do the reverse. So this weaving line I came out, I was underneath. So now I'm going to go on top and under and over. And I like to just continue pressing those stitches tight against the top. And I'm going to do the same thing. So now I'm going to go under, over, under. This stitch, depending on the thread you use, it can work up pretty quickly. If you use a thicker thread, it can work up fairly quickly. It's really cool to use a variegated thread because you get a really nice variety of colors. Again, without lots of work, it just lets you have a lot of colors added. And after each row, I just, again, press those so that they sit tight against the previous row. I hope I'm not making you dizzy going back and forth like this. You might not need to flip yours. It's just easier for me to do it this way. So you can see this is working up fairly quickly. I'm using a size 5 pearl cotton. I find that I like thicker threads and preferably threads that are not stranded with this one. I just like the appearance of that better. You might like something different, but I always prefer to use my pearl cottons or my tapestry wools. A thinner thread will look really cool, but it'll take you a really long time. But it'll look cool, so. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end. And you're just going to gauge how many stitches you think you can have on here before you need to end it. Sometimes it doesn't matter to me if my little, like my base threads show at the bottom because I'm going to be covering them up with other things, or you can nestle them into things. And sometimes I like to hide them. think I'm going to sneak one more row in here. Okay, so when I've gotten to the end of my row, it's super easy. All I do is take this thread below the fabric, and then you take your needle out. You can see that this thread, or what you just stitched, the picot, can move around. You could secure it at the end. In fact, I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's see, I'd like to have mine have a little twist sometimes. So I might secure it so that it looks like that, and that you can see when you look from the side, it's a little raised. So all I do then is bring my needle and thread up where I want to secure it, and take a tiny little stitch through the very end. And there it is. It's on your fabric. It won't move around. You can see that you can put a needle underneath of it still. So that's the Woven Picot stitch.